Welcome back, and now for the news in detail. We start from Iran, which has warned the US against any attempt to seize its oil tanker in open seas after it left Gibraltar. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Abbas Mousavi says such an action will have consequences. Mousavi said it will also endanger shipping safety in open seas. Earlier, Gibraltar rejected a US court order to detain the ship, saying Washington's sanctions against Iran are not applicable in the EU. Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump has claimed Iran will like to resume dialogue after the release of its tanker.
Notice they haven't taken any of our boats. They haven't taken our ships. They've taken ships, but they haven't taken our ships, and they better not. But I will say this. I really think that Iran wants to get there. They have a great potential.
Trump said Iran has to find out some way to ease tensions with the US because its economy is crashing. Now moving on to Kashmir, where a 7-year-old child injured in unprovoked firing by Indian forces along the line of control has succumbed to wounds. Earlier, the Pakistan Army said 2 civilians were martyred by Indian fighting in the Hot Spring sector. Pakistan's military said the Indian Army used mortars and anti-tank guided rockets on the civilian population. Pakistan's military said it retaliated effectively, killing at least 2 Indian soldiers. It says scores of other Indian troops were wounded. Meanwhile, Pakistan has summoned Indian Deputy High Commissioner Gaurav Ahluwalia and lodged protest against LOC violation. Moreover, the crushing curfew in occupied Kashmir has entered a 15th day as the Indian forces continue its siege in the valley. The whole territory is under complete communication blackout since India revoked Article 370 on August the 5th. Continuing its state terrorism, the occupation Indian forces have detained 4,000 people in last 2 weeks. A local magistrate told media the civilians have been arrested under controversial Public Safety Act. He said this law allows Indian forces to imprison anyone for up to 2 years without charge or trial. He also said most of the arrested have been flown out of occupied Kashmir because prisons here run out of capacity. In a related development, citizens on both sides of line of control protested against the ongoing lockdown of occupied valley. Protesters on the Pakistani side of LOC said they had been unable to speak to their family members in the occupied valley for over 2 weeks. This report has the details.
Kashmiris continue to demand that India end its lockdown, which has been in effect for 15 days. In Azad Kashmir, demonstrators sat with symbolically gagged mouths outside the Muzaffarabad Press Club. They said it had been a fortnight since they spoke to their relatives across the line of control. They demanded that the international community take notice of India's human rights violations.
I am from a divided Kashmiri family. All my relatives live there in occupied Kashmir. Occupied Kashmir is under curfew for many days. Mosques, pharmacies and shops are locked down and our defenseless brothers and sisters are being tyrannized.
In Srinagar, protesters were seen sloganeering for freedom while waving Pakistani flags.
The day is 24 hours long, out of which they only ease restrictions on movement for about half an hour. I am worried about everything, my children and my family.
Protests against India's revocation of Article 370 were also held in Karachi. Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi has challenged Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi to lift its curfew immediately. He said this was the only way to check how well the Kashmiri populace had received New Delhi's actions.
Moving on to Syria, where the death toll from the fierce clashes in Idlib has risen to 97 as the Syrian government forces advance into Khan Sheikhoun town. The Syrian War Observatory says 62 rebel fighters and 35 government soldiers were killed in the fighting. It said the government forces have entered the key town, Khan Sheikhoun, for the first time since they lost control over it in 2014. The town lies on a highway connecting government-held Damascus with the northern city of Aleppo. Meanwhile, Iran's foreign ministry said the recent US-Turkey safe zone agreements in northern Syria are provocative and worrisome. Last week, Washington and Ankara agreed to set up a joint operations center for the proposed zone along Syria's northeast border. Libya's UN-recognized government says it has intercepted an armed drone fired by the eastern forces in the northwestern Misrata city. A government spokesperson said the city's international airport was the target. The government said its forces will respond to General Khalifa Haftar's offensive soon. The UN's Libya mission has condemned the attacks on civilian infrastructure, calling them a grave violation of international law. The WHO said violent clashes in the country since April the 4th have killed over 1,000 people and wounded over 5,500. Turkey has arrested 418 terrorist suspects belonging to Kurdistan Workers' Party, also called the PKK. Turkish Interior Ministry said the terrorist suspects were held from 29 different provinces. Earlier, Turkish authorities dismissed 3 mayors of eastern Turkey over alleged terror links. The 30-year-long Turkish and Kurdish conflict has claimed the lives of hundreds of thousands of people. The US, Turkey, and the EU recognize the PKK as a terrorist organization. French President Emmanuel Macron says he will discuss the Ukraine crisis with his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin. The Russian president will meet Macron at Bougainville in southern France on the sidelines of the G7 summit today. French government officials said Paris will ask Moscow to resume peace talks with Ukraine over Crimea. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has also urged Putin to resume dialogue after the killing of 4 Ukrainian soldiers earlier this month. Brexit Secretary Stephen Barclay has signed an order that will end all EU laws applying in Britain from October the 31st. Barclay says the legislation sets in stone the repeal of the European Communities Act 1972. The order will bring the European Union Withdrawal Act into force. The repeal of the ECA will take effect when Britain formally leaves the EU on October the 31st. The Act's regulations flow into British law directly from the EU's lawmaking bodies in Brussels. Prime Minister Boris Johnson said signing the document means the UK will take back control of its laws on Brexit Day. Heavy rain pummeled parts of North India, killing 28 people in Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand and Punjab. The Indian National Disaster Management Authority said 22 others are missing in the region. Authorities have issued a flood alert in Punjab and Uttar Pradesh as Yamuna and other rivers reached dangerous levels. Landslides and flooding blocked the roads, disrupting the railway schedule. Meanwhile, the death toll from the rain-related incidents in southern states of Kerala and Karnataka has climbed to 197. 15 people have been killed after a truck collided with a passenger bus in Indian state of Maharashtra. Police said 35 others were injured in the accident in Dhule district of the state. Police said 8 of the injured got life-threatening injuries. The drivers of both vehicles and 9 passengers died on the spot. The bus carrying 45 passengers was heading for Aurangabad city. 20 people have been killed and dozens of others injured after a fuel tanker caught fire in western Rubiruzi district of Uganda. The accident occurred after the driver lost control of the tanker and collided with a stationary vehicle, triggering fire. Police said the tanker was heading from Kenya to Congo. They said the fire also burnt shops, stalls, a market and 2 vehicles. A Malaysian court has postponed a trial hearing against former Prime Minister Najib Razak for a week. This is the biggest of 5 trials linked to a multi-billion-dollar scam at State Fund One Malaysia Development Berhad. This was done to allow time for the completion of a previous trial against former 1MDB unit SRC International. Najib has been hit with 42 criminal charges of graft and money laundering at 1MDB and other state entities. In next Monday's trial, he will fight 21 charges of money laundering. He will also face charges of illegally receiving about 2.3 billion ringgit between 2011 and 2014. Najib has pleaded not guilty and claims the charges are politically motivated. It's a time for a short break, but coming up next in the Bulletin. Dutch consumers join collective funds as alternative. Sarajevo launched its 25th annual film festival. Welcome back. In Afghanistan, 34 people have been injured after a series of blasts struck public places and restaurants in the eastern city of Jalalabad. This comes a day after ISIS claimed blast killed 63 people in Kabul wedding. The improvised explosive devices were planted near a market where hundreds of people were attending the country's 100th Independence Day. Earlier, Afghan President Ashraf Ghani pledged to eliminate all safe havens of ISIS in the country. No militant group has yet claimed the responsibility. Environmentalists in Iceland have laid a commemorative plaque on the site of melted Ökjökull glacier. The glacier has been declared dead as a warning to the world about climate change. Details in this report.
Politicians, scientists and locals attended the unveiling of a memorial plaque in west-central Iceland. Scientists see the shrinking of glaciers as one of many warning signs that the Earth's climate is lurching towards dangerous tipping points. The commemoration marked the site of the 700-year-old Ökjökull glacier, which melted away. Ökjökull was pronounced dead in 2014 as it no longer fulfilled the criteria to be classified as a glacier. Scientists say that in the past 20 years, almost 1 in 5 glaciers on the island has disappeared.
Okay, and welcome everyone.
Probably close to 100 glaciers have disappeared during the last century. And now there are 250 to 270 left, which will perish in the next decades and couple of centuries.
NASA's Earth Observatory showed the glacier as a solid white patch in 1986. But in an image from August the 1st this year, it showed only small dashes of white ice as remaining. Professor of Anthropology at Rice University, Dominic Boyer, called for a European alliance to fight climate change.
There is going to be a meeting of the Nordic heads of state along with Angela Merkel from Germany here in the next couple of days. And we're all hoping very much that that understanding of the acceleration of this climate crisis will lead the Scandinavian countries and Germany to declare themselves world leaders in combating the climate emergency.
Icelanders call their nation the land of fire and ice for its otherworldly landscape of volcanoes and glaciers immortalized in literature.
In the Netherlands, a farm feeding hundreds of locals is not like any traditional ranch. It is the latest innovation for a country engaged in an existential fight against the climate change. Details in this report.
Chicken roam the orchards, cows chew the cud, and pigs roll in the mud on a warm day on a Dutch farm. But the pastoral scene is not as traditional as it seems. The farm is owned and run by a cooperative of hundreds of local consumers.
It is owned by about 200 households living in or around Boxtel. Together, they rent 20 hectares of farmland. They employ a farmer who produces food for them. We have chickens in the orchard, which provide us with eggs and meat. We eat apples, pears, plums from the orchard. We have about 40 or 50 kinds of vegetables and beef cows.
Appels, peren en pruimen uit de boomgaard.
It aims to change habits in a low-lying country engaged in an existential fight against climate change.
The main purpose for the members is to eat natural products in a sustainable and pleasant way close to home. We see that there is little by little a desire to change the food systems in the Netherlands.
The collective farm idea is groundbreaking in the Netherlands. According to the Dutch Central Statistics Bureau, intensive farming methods have made it the world's second biggest agricultural exporter. But the small country is particularly vulnerable to global warming, in which scientists say agriculture plays a key role.
Wat we hier doen is, we noemen dat net.
What we are doing here is what we call a production that is dictated to us by nature, which means that we work with nature. And not everything that grows here, all the herbs you can see here, would be cleaned with spades or even killed with pesticides. We try to collaborate with nature.
In de meeste gevallen.
It costs €2,000 to join the collective farm and then a weekly fee of around €10 per person. In return, members receive the food they want and stress the importance of knowing what they eat is local and seasonal.
On a star-studded night, both literally and metaphorically, Sarajevo launched its 25th annual film festival. The event honored Mexican and Polish directors Alejandro Inarritu and Paweł Pawlikowski for their exceptional contribution to the art form. For details, watch this report.
The Sarajevo Film Festival, a film festival born from war, is now celebrating its 25th anniversary with a slew of international film stars. It's a red carpet with a difference. The event is a bid to revive arts and culture in Sarajevo in an effort to move on from Bosnia's wartime legacy.
I think it's a little bit more than a festival. It's also the celebration of the vitality and the creativity of the town of Sarajevo. And Sarajevo, it's also the center of Europe, and you have to take good care of Europe at this moment.
Paweł Pawlikowski, whose Ida won an Oscar for Best Foreign Language Film in 2015, received the Honorary Heart of Sarajevo Award. His co-recipient, Inarritu, famed for his back-to-back Oscars for The Revenant and Birdman, thanked organizers for the honor. French actress Isabelle Huppert was also honored with a special prize at the Bosnian capital's film festival.
Sarajevo Film Festival is graced with the presence of one of the most distinguished actors in cinema today. It gives us great pleasure to pay tribute to this truly legendary star for her honest and intense performances and for her committed search to truth in acting.
The festival was launched in 1995 as an act of defiance towards the 43-month siege of Sarajevo by Bosnian Serb forces. The event has featured big names over the years, such as Robert De Niro, Angelina Jolie, and Jeremy Irons.
Lows and the highs of the business world now. US President Donald Trump says he doesn't want to do business with Chinese tech giant Huawei due to national security concerns. Trump also rejected concerns that his country's economic growth is faltering due to ongoing trade war with China. Earlier, the Commerce Department said it will extend Huawei's license for 90 days, allowing it to continue business with the US firms. Washington has blocked US companies from selling or transferring technology to Huawei unless they are granted a special license. The current US agreement with Chinese tech giant ends today. Germany says it can muster $55 billion of extra spending to deal with the looming economic crunch. Finance Minister Olaf Scholz says Berlin has the fiscal muscle to counter next possible crisis. The German economy contracted 0.1% quarter-on-quarter from April to June. Raising fears of recession, industrial orders data suggested hardly any improvement in the third quarter. Germany's debt level is likely to fall to 58% of economic output this year from previous years over 60%. The most global markets have risen as investors welcomed moves by Chinese central bank to keep business interest rates low. The bank said it will improve the mechanism used to establish loan prime rate from this month. Sharp rises in oil company shares drove Britain's FTSE nearly 1% high. It was FTSE's biggest one-day rise in more than 10 days. Mainland Chinese shares jumped over 2%, their best since early July. Japan's Nikkei also rose significantly. Hong Kong's Hang Seng also jumped more than 2%. South Korea's Kospi and Australia's ASX are also in positive territory. Meanwhile, an attack on a Saudi oil facility by Yemeni separatists pushed crude prices significantly high. And now the weather situation from around the globe. That's all for now. For further updates, stay tuned to Indus News.